Depending on your product, if your product is 0.5 and if you want to promote it as a non-alcoholic, then you need to choose the countries which is it possible with the regulatory feasibility. Or you decide your markets and then you need to adapt your alcohol level for that market. And we are talking about European Union. Why is it really important for the other countries? Because European Union controls 60% of the wine industry, wine trade, in terms of production and exports. So if something changes in Europe, European Union, then meaning that it will change also in the other countries eventually. I always say this, it depends on the three pillars. It depends on the base wine. The first pillar, very important. The second is the technology. And then the third is the stabilization, post the alcoholization stabilization.
Everyone, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining. This is Ankita. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Beverage Trade Network. And with me, I have Irem, who is our judge, who is also our expert. And she's one of the great ambassadors that I've been seeing and following for no and low alcohol wines. The session that we have today it mainly revolves around how can no and low alcohol wines can win, not just in UK, though we are trying to focus more in UK, but because Irem has a very global perspective, we'll try to go more global in this as well. She is also Solos Technologies brand ambassador, but I will let Irem do a quick introduction. But before that, this webinar is brought to you by London Competition. London Competition is one of the leading competitions of UK where we judge wine, spirits, and beer on quality, value, and packaging. Let me give the stage to Irem to just take us through the passion that she has for this category and how did you come in the industry. So Irem, I know about you, but if you can just quickly take us through a little introduction about yourself before we begin with the questions.
Thank you so much, Ankita, and hi everyone who is joining live and also who's seeing the recording later. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and with London Wine Competitions. It's always great collaborating. This is, I think, our second webinar. We did one last year, right?
Yes.
So it's always very interesting to see also the attendees' questions and what they are curious about to know. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can give as much as insights that I can today, based on my expertise and experience in the no and low category. I have wine and beverage experience. Let's say now I need to say kind of traditional wine because the things are changing. Because before it was like we would only say wine, but now saying wine or traditional or wine or drinks. So I have about like 15 years experience. I started in the industry, beverage industry, alcohol and beverage 15 years ago. And I think I worked in the kind of all these different parts of the wine industry. Started in on-trade with the consumer focus in New York, which is the one of the biggest consumer markets. And then moved into the import, distribution, exports, brand side, and then also production. I worked from sales, consumer marketing, and production in the category. And since 6 years, I'm specialized in the no and low. My introduction to the no and low was with Natureo by Familia Torres. I was working in Torres wineries, and then obviously Natureo, as we all know, it's one of the pioneers, especially in Europe, with the non-alcoholic. And then after that, I worked for about 4 years as a business development director for Bev Zero, and now I am working as a no and low alcohol consultant and as a Solos Technologies brand ambassador. I think I have kind of handful experience in different countries, Europe, US, UK, and technological know-how as well, because I work with different technologies. And hopefully now I can bring my insights to the trade as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ram. Love the idea that the attendees will not just get the idea of the supplier side, but also the buyer side, because you have worked a little bit on the import and distribution of it as well. So let's begin with our question one, which is the highest asked question. And I think everybody is looking to understand where does this category plays a role in global market. So we know that it's been growing. We know that there's a shift in consumer drinking that has happened. So if you have to set a tone for our producers in terms of what global buyers are expecting when they look for low and no alcohol wines around the world, be it UK, be it the main regions like America, Europe. So what is their expectation? What are they expecting? Where are they moving? What sort of decisions are they making?
I think generally to set the tone, like globally, the buyers today are moving from curiosity to commitment. And
Right.
I think this is a quite big statement because, like, again, this is also in the no and low alcohol category, especially in the wine category. The biggest difference is for the first time in the wine industry, I would say, consumers are demanding something, and wine industry, wine trade is trying to adapt, because normally with the traditional wine it has been always the other way around, and it's a very traditional category as well, a lot of like heritage culture. So it was always that kind of the trade or the industry is trying to meet the consumers and trying
Right.
to used to promote. But now it has been the other way around. So when the category started, let's say maybe a little bit more than a decade ago, obviously, as we know, it started with the dry January. But then the consumers also had more curiosity towards it. What is this dry January? And then the trade started to have curiosity as well. But now we're not talking about dry January anymore. We're talking about more conscious lifestyle choices,
Right.
moderation, even like we're talking about zebra crossing, meaning in the same occasion drinking between non-alcoholic or alcoholic beverages. So it is now a commitment. And the buyers, the trade also, it's not only curious anymore. They're also committed to this because they know that it's not a trend, it's a category to stay here.
True.
But the main driver is changing consumer behaviors. Again, as I said, moderation, balance, social inclusion. And also younger generations drink less, but they expect quality and authenticity. So now buyers are looking for that as well. It's not only about like, okay, no alcohol. Because yes, there's a category, no and low alcohol, but what else you can position. So it also changes in different parts of the world, in UK, North America, Middle East, Asia, Pacific. So in UK, I would consider UK is like a more mature market now. And
Right.
it's not only about like just kind of the listings are shifting from only like one zero SKU. It is now creating the full no and low alcohol portfolios, and there are importers and distributors in UK who are dedicated to no and low only. And also buyers expect now premiumization, flavor integrity, alignment with the audience, either on trade or off trade. It's not only about zero alcohol anymore. It's much more than that. But also UK is also quite depending on the obviously different parts of the categories. It can be also price sensitive, and UK is in the traditional wine as well, or 80% of the products in off trade are sold on promotion, because the consumers are, when they see a higher price product and then seeing the same product on promotion, they think, okay, it's a good quality, but I have a good deal now, so I need to take advantage of it. So that's why if a brand is trying to enter to UK, they need to think about it. It's like they need to offer the buyer authenticity, but also they will be able to support that product financially on the promotion side, because UK is a relatively mature market in the non-law. In the North Americas and Australia, for example, we also see that there's a maturity there, but also it is not as price sensitive as UK, but it's more health and functionality matters. So the buyers there, they're looking also for more health or functional or like more mindful lifestyle products. And functionality meaning, yes, functionality of the product, but also functional beverages. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit more in depth, but this is a growing category as well. Middle East, Asia, it is now like I would say emerging markets. More there's like still there's we are talking about more curiosity there, but also we need the cultural compatibility and the sophistication. So it needs to also, these products needs to deliver the cultural norms and the wine like experience. Whereas in UK, United States, we're
The
talking
set
about
category. Yeah.
taste, yeah, the different categories. But Middle East and Asia is still like a more winey experience. Obviously, if you talk about the dry market, it's total different story, halal products. But overall, it's not a novelty space. It is a category. It is stay here, and then the buyers expect wines or non-alcoholic wines or low alcohol wines with the origin, expression, varietal character, purpose. It's not only about like grape juice with bubbles, because there's so many products in the market that's sparkling, non-alcoholic wines with lots of sugar addition. So now I think buyers want to see the wines deliver the identity.
Mm.
not only compromising because there is no alcohol and it's like a
True.
sacrifice.
True.
Hmm.
So I think well said, because the phase one is kind of over. Like, nobody is just talking about be it a category. It's been getting included in menus. UK for sure is a matured market. It's already included very well in UK trade. For Asia, for example, in our recent trip, we have also seen non-alc is being included to a lot of hospitality sector already, and people are getting so much health conscious and going for the mindful drinking and the functional beverages, as you said. So I think the phase one is over. Phase one of curiosity is completely gone. It's all
Yeah.
about bringing the quality now. When we
Hmm.
know that what to expect from a no and low alcohol, the idea is to bring the quality. Good point on premiumization. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about what's happening there, like which market. So now let's say we know where does these regions more or less stand. So when you're approaching, for any producers, when they are approaching to export market, then what are the most effective ways that they should identify and prioritize before they even enter into a country? As you said, Middle East, they need to understand how compatible they can go with the culture, how they can make sure that people are moving with this category by synchronizing it with their routine and not completely giving up on them. So what such strategies does come in mind when any producer is trying to export?
Yeah. So here I think there's we can split this in two different ways depending on the type of the producer, because again, this category, no and low category, especially in the wine, it's dominated by the brands at the moment. There are native brands to no and low alcohol category. So the brand marketeers, the idea, the creators, they come up with their idea and then they create the product only for the no and low category. So there are those kind of brands, small brands, emerging brands who are not necessarily in the traditional wine industry or not a traditional wine producer. Maybe they're not present in any country. They don't have any distributors because it's a new brand entering a native no alcohol brand.
Right.
So that will be a different strategy for them. But for the sake of this question, because it is asking like what are the most effective ways for the
Correct.
wineries, so I am considering this question as a more traditional winery who are doing a line extension on the no and low
No and
alcohol
low.
products.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will take it from there. So in this case, obviously, this is maybe it can be as a traditional winery. If they're already it can be their own domestic market, but if they're already exporting, they would already have a line of importers and distributors. Could go with them, but they could also look for the different types of distributors and importers to carry no and low products only. But to
Mm.
prioritize the markets, the best way I think for me is like the combining the three different things. First is the regulatory feasibility, because not
Mm.
every market has the regulatory
Yeah.
feasibility. And then the market maturity. Some markets, as we just spoke, are mature markets, some are
Right.
establishing, some are emerging, and then also distribution readiness. So what do I mean by these three of them? So when we talk about the feasibility, regulatory feasibility, for example, we don't have a global regulation at the moment with the non-alcoholic. What does non-alcoholic mean? Some countries is 0.0, some countries can go up to 0.5, some countries can go even up to one degree alcohol. But if it is a halal product, it needs to be 0.02. Those definitions are really very important. So depending on your product, if your product is 0.5 and if you want to promote it as a non-alcoholic, then you need to choose the countries which is it possible with the regulatory feasibility. Or you decide your markets and then you need to adapt your alcohol level for that market.
Right.
So in European Union, for example, now European Union Regulation Commission is proposing a more global legislations to cover 27 countries of European Union. They propose in March and June, it was the first commission approval, and November 5th, the parliament will vote. So in this case, we will see if, depending on the vote, maybe the implementations will start, and then we're going to talk about more global legislations in Europe. But at the moment, within the Europe, even we need to check those those feasibility. And also, again, after that, the maturity. Like, I will recommend to wineries looking at the categories where, like, the countries where the category is already educating consumers. Because, again, the consumers, they can be sober curious, or
Right.
they can be consumers who are embracing moderation. If they're sober curious, meaning, yes, they have curiosity, they can buy these products once, but we cannot guarantee the rotation if they're going to buy it again. But if we are talking about a category or country or the market who is embracing moderation, then it means that there's a more sustainable growth in that country.
Correct.
So, for example, UK, Nordics, USA, Australia, Germany, those countries are, yes, we're talking about moderation. But if you're talking about, let's say, for example, Japan is a curious country. At the moment, there's sober curiosity, there's trials. Consumers are curious, they want to try, but there is not moderation yet in Japan,
Right.
for example. And also distribution readiness is very important. Again, looking at their own importers, where they have the importer and distribution chain, but also those importers that they work with. Are they familiar with no and low? Because it is also like, yes, educating trade is very important as well. And if the importer and distributor is not familiar with the no and low category, it's a total different sales approach. It's a total different way to reach the consumer. So in this case, they can maybe try to go with another importer who
That
carries
has a portfolio, yeah, of no
with
and
the
low.
compliance and logistics. So, and
Right.
then the last thing is, I would recommend like not trying to do everything at once, just focusing on the key markets, prioritizing, and then go deep. So, meaning investing in storytelling, visibility, partnerships, or
Right.
promotional budget, because they will need to support
The
those.
distributor.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Because getting one listing is something else, which is already a great achievement, but trying to have the turnover and then the repeat sales is another thing. So they will need to support it. So that's why just go deep, prioritize, and go deep.
Understood. Great points. Love the distribution readiness because I think that is where everybody pay attention to. But I think the prior two points of checking the maturity of the market and taking care of the regulation is something which is very dynamic. And
Yeah.
it's so I think the next question is almost the same. Like how do labeling alcohol limits and compliant requirements changes and what wineries should commonly what mistakes do they make because I'm sure that the percentage is completely different from country to country and as you said that they have to make sure that to identify their market first and then reverse engineer their own product accordingly but is it like that much possible or does winery sometimes make some sort of mistakes in terms of understanding the regulations?
A great question. Again, just as following like the previous one, we can go more into the regulations. Creating these products, non-alcoholic products, we have some little bit, I think, more flexibility to adapt to different country regulations and different alcohol levels. Because when we talk about the no and low alcohol wines, we're talking about removing the alcohol, we're talking about the alcoholization.
Yeah.
And, this is normally more on-demand production. So we have the wine. Obviously, we make the wine once a year. There are some countries like Egypt, there are two harvests a year because of the climate. But in the countries generally, there are one harvest a year. We make the wine once a year with the alcohol. But then we keep that wine, we store it in tank, inox tank or a barrel in a container, and then depending on when we have the demand, we dealcoholize this product and then we finish and we bottle and then we distribute it, right? So depending on the country, the regulations, if it is 00 or 0.5, then I think the producers can have flexibility in the method of dealcoholization, the moment of the alcoholization to reduce the alcohol. But again, then they need to do a post adjustments to adapt the style and the taste profile. So that's why, again, it's really good, important to kind of knowing what the regulatory limits and the compliance is in each country. At the moment, we are talking about wild west of definitions and the regulations. As I said, even within European Union, there's differences, but I can
Difference.
already give a sneak peek about the European Union regulations if again November 5th, if the parliament votes in a positive way, then the implementations will start between European Union Commission, the Council, and the European Union Parliament. So in this case, if the product the dealcoholized wine, post dealcoholization, it has the ingredients of which are allowed in wine making. Those products can be called no alcohol wine or low alcohol wine. So we don't have to say anymore the beverage or the dealcoholized wine. We will be able to say no and low alcohol wine as long as it meets with the ingredient compliances and the alcohol. And the European Union will allow to go up to 0.5 alcohol to call it no alcohol wine. But again, in UK at the moment we are talking about 0.05 as a limit. In US as well, in Canada as well. So these are very important to know. And then also the mandatory origin and ingredient disclosure is really important. Again, European Union is trying to kind of have the transparency. And we are talking about European Union. Why is it really important for the other countries? Because European Union controls 60% of the wine industry, wine trade in terms of production and exports. So if something changes in Europe, European Union, then meaning that it will change also in the other countries eventually. So that is a very important step for the no and low category, this harmonization. And then also they were talking about duty classification. In some countries, these products are taxed, in some countries are not. So it is very important before finalizing your entry strategy to the market, because we will be talking about ex-work pricing. So if you're not aware of duty classification and alcohol duty, then that ex-work price may not be the optimum price for that country. So what I also always recommend, like if you know that how you position this product in this market, then do the reverse engineering and come back and check all the classifications, all the taxes for those category. And also what is helpful for the producers is obviously the back labels, because we don't want to change your back labels for every country or for every production. Now again, European Union is allowing to have the ingredient list and a nutritional panel in the QRs. So this is, I think, a very good advantage, because then you can do the QR, and then in the back end, you can change the details as needed or adapt it to different countries. So these are, I think, quick tips that they can check, but I recommend to all the wineries, all the producers to go search for the regulations, and even maybe have consultants working for them, with them, for the labeling and all the duty.
So just a question, like when we talk about labeling, it does not always change the front end, but it always change the back label, and the QR makes it even more easier because you don't have to put all the information right there. You can just scan and you can go further, right?
Exactly, yeah. So the front label obviously is very important as well. But again, the front label, it's not something that it will be changing for every country. Front label
Correct.
is if obviously you're alcohol free or non-alcoholic, or if you want to put the alcohol obviously in the front label, or the I mean, if let's say product of France, product of Europe, those are already depending on the regulations of the country of the production. But also back label has the regulations of the country of the production, but also country of the consumption and export markets. So in this case, before for these products, it was like it was mandatory to put all the ingredient list and then the nutritional panel.
Nutrition,
But now in
yes.
European Union, it can be QR code. But
QR
again,
code.
this needs to be checked also for the export market, if that particular export market allows that or not. If it's quite complication, but the more we can simplify, then obviously it's better, so that we don't have to have different variants. But again, in the bottling, it's very quite like a simple. You can have the front label same, but then in one run, let's say if you do 10,000 bottles, then split
You can just make,
5,000 with
yeah.
one back label and another 5,000 with other back label if needed.
Production and technical adaptation. So I think this is where your expertise lies as well. So from a technical perspective, how can producers optimize dealc or favor stability, especially when the wine has to travel across? And there's a lot of time which is involved. There's a lot of logistics that is involved. How do you think that first question would be, how much does it actually hamper? And the second question would be, if it does, then what is the best way the producers can actually make sure that the flavor stability stays across?
So this again also when the traveling long distance, it depends on different things, how this product is traveling. Is it traveling bulk or is it traveling package? And if it is
Mm.
traveling package with type of packaging format. So I will try to give a little bit of like the overview of all for the optimization, because there's also in the part of the question is also asking the producers optimizing the alcoholization and the flavor
Right.
stability. So again, for the optimized dealcoholized or non-alcoholic wine, high quality, I always say this, it depends on the three pillars. It depends on the base wine. The
Mm.
first pillar, very important. The second is the technology. And then the third is the stabilization, post-dealcoholization
Mm.
stabilization. So with the base wine, obviously it needs to be high quality, free of defects, because if there's any defect with the dealcoholization, it's going to amplify and then it's going to make it unstable for the traveling long
For the
distance.
traveling, yeah.
Yeah, so the base wine needs to be good quality, but also it needs to be protein stable, very important. And if it is obviously tartaric stable, it's better, but the protein stability is very important. And then also if they can work with a natural, good natural acidity and lower pH, then it will make this product
Mm.
also more stable. But there is also a fine line between if it is very high acidity and very low pH, then with the dealcoholization, this gap will be higher.
Widen, yeah.
Exactly, widen. And then also I recommend avoiding overripe fruits profile as well. So the base wine needs to be a very important choice. And then the technology is very important also. The gentle methods, obviously treating the wine less, and the gentle, the low temperature vacuum distillation, for example, is it's recommendable, because then we are avoiding to cooking those products. And also, gentle aroma recovery systems. So choice of the technology, it's important in how we treat the wine, but also it's important in terms of the post dealcoholization. It affects the ingredients that we use. If we can manage to create a non-alcoholic wine with less ingredients possible, as clean as possible, it's going to give us more stability over time.
Stable.
The
Mm.
more ingredients we have, we don't know how they might interact
React,
the time.
yeah.
So for example,
Yeah.
in solos, our motto is in solos technology is like we're opting for clean labels. So we are trying to work with a really obviously expressive and terroir driven wines, because the winemakers are giving so much effort. So we want to keep it, and then we dealcoholize it in the low temperature vacuum distillation, and then we have an aroma recovery system that we can recover all the aromas and put it back, and ideally no other ingredients. So then we can achieve terroir expression, varietal expression, the style of the winemaker, but also a long-term stabilization.
Mm.
And obviously, with the stabilization after dealcoholization, what is really important is microbiological and flavor stability, which is critical for travel, and sterile filtration.
Mm.
So here, then we can split this into two. If this product is traveling bulk or package, if this product is traveling bulk, bone dry, no sugar addition, no grape must addition, sterile filtration, and the oxygen management is very important. Obviously, the container truck will need to be nitrogen or carbon dioxide blanket before, so that we can avoid any oxygen, and then correct sulfur or adjustment or ascorbic balance. It's very important to prevent any oxidation or any fermentation. But again, we have to be careful with the sulfur levels, because it can create reduction over time if it is high sulfur
Mm.
levels. And then normally avoid respecting those. The product can travel bulk in 1 week or 10 days at
Mm.
the temperature control transportation. And then if it is obviously bottled, then again, microbiological filtration and then sterile filtration. And DMDC is recommended, the methyl dicarbonate, for the optimum microbiological stability. In this case, in a bottle of 75 cl glass, then we can have a 5-year microbiological stability, and flavor stability normally it can go up to 3 years. But then after that, the wine starts to change. Sometimes, depending on the type of the wine, it's positive change. Sometimes, more losing the flavor profile. Again, this is a new category, so unfortunately, we don't have historical of the products of like 10 years old or
Yeah.
15 years old. So we are also creating a database to see how these products evolve within time. But again, which is really important is consistency, because let's say a UK buyer won't reorder a second batch if it tastes different from the first batch. So that's why it's very important to keep the quality consistent across different markets. To keep this consistent across different markets, let's say if we are producing in Spain and if we want to ship to UK and bottle in UK, that is okay. UK Spain UK bulk shipment, it's perfectly feasible. But
Right.
if you want to ship it to US and bottle in US from Spain, then it is more risky. Then I would recommend
Mm.
to bottle
Bottle it in the
in
Spain
Spain
itself.
and
Yeah.
then ship it. Yeah.
With the pattern. Okay. How compatible the logistic partners are for shipping the non-alc?
At the moment, there are more and more options, and then there are shipping partners that they are very experienced in that. But not obviously all the shipping companies are deal with no and low alcohol. So I
Mm.
would recommend all the producers to work with the shipping companies who are
Has an
with.
experience
Yeah,
of.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know if I am allowed to say brands names here.
Yeah, please. I think
Uh,
that will help people because it might be a question. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, in Spain, there's Transportes Felix, and they are very experienced in bulk shipment with the non-alcoholic wines, and they can offer different like flexi tanks or ISO or different compartments. Hildebrand is also very experienced overall, globally. So there are several companies, and then I mean, if there are more questions about that, I can also
Yes.
later give some names. But yeah, it is. There are more and more actually companies who
That are
are
now
focusing that. Yeah.
Mm. This we talked about as a third main pillar for any producer or any winery to take care of being ready for the distributors. So, what are the key factors that international distributors are looking for when they are selecting low and no brands to represent? And what difference do you see when we are talking about the traditional wine portfolio selection by distributors compared to the non no and low alcohol wine category?
Distributors, I think I mean, it's also there's a change in the distribution behaviors. Because a few years ago, I think most of the distributors, the traditional distributors, they were thinking, okay, I need to put at least one SKU in my portfolio.
Diversity,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To meet the demand. But now there are also more know-how and understanding on these as well. So then distributors also started to differentiate. I think a buyer of a distributor is asking a few main questions when they choose a product. It's like, first of all, obviously, the taste, very important. The taste profile is very important. But before going to the taste profile, because it is also there's competition in this category as well. There's so many brands coming into the space, and then there are less and less distributors specializing in this. So that's why it can create a little bit of like, okay, how do I get into this distribution?
Competitiveness. Yes.
Exactly. And then the taste is very important, but before getting to the taste, you need to pass different filters. So obviously the brand is very important. A distributor, a buyer looks at the brands, if the storytelling or if does it stand out, and then
Mm.
what is the story behind it, why is it different? It's not only non-alcohol anymore, because there are so many also products in the category. And then second of all, obviously the price point, if it is a matching price point for that market and for that maybe distribution.
Yes.
And after you pass those filters, then yes, does it taste good? Then you get to send the samples and then they taste it. But it's not only about does it tasting the good, does it deliver the complexity? In this category, we can go like a winey product, like non-alcoholic, like wine-like product, but we can also go like a beverage style, which is tasting different but tasting good. But in both ways, it needs to offer complexity. It's not anymore about like homogeneous products, because yes, in the beginning of the category, there were like homogeneous products, but now there's much more different. And then also again, the technical part is important. Is it stable? Is it compliant with the
Correct.
regulations? And then the third thing I think is very important, does the producer support the activation and the education? Because distributors are also having a difficult time to educate the trade buyers, so they also need support. So if the producer or the brand owner is available for in terms of time, investment, and also the financial support to activate the category and educate. So I think if the brand owners can already go with this offer to distributors, I think it's going to be making a difference. Yeah.
What sort of support activation are we talking about? Like, how do we do with wine, like master classes, pop up, or maybe putting it out more on social media? What sort of support activation have you seen that works with No and Low?
Obviously, when we talk about the traditional wine, yes, we do master classes, we do tastings. But obviously, with the traditional wine, we are normally more focused on our own brand, what we are presenting. But because of no and low alcohol is a new category and there's not enough education in the wine trade, I think we need to think a little bit out of the box, and we also need to think like the brands working together to promote the category. So we should see each other as a competitor. So instead of like just only focusing on your brand, first of all, it can be an activation or like based on education or the tasting masterclass, not only how you make your own wine, but also like giving a general background on the no and low. Like why does this category matters? Why
What
is
to
it
expect
important
from
for,
the
yeah, exactly,
category?
consumers? What does consumers are looking for? Also educating the distributor staff, but also educating the on-trade, off-trade buyers and the staff, for them to have this also the understanding. And then how do we make the wine, and how do I make my own wine? And then what is the taste profile? And then what is the pairing suggestions? And then from there we can go like a little bit more like a
Right.
tradition. And also what is important is the consumption habits. So if you can do activations pop up for creating those consumption moments, but also obviously again, if you're talking in off trade, there is also a promotional budget or on trade activation budget. It is very important as well.
I think it's completely in sync with what we have answered before. So, how should a winery craft its brand story to global buyers, especially to stand out in a market where the category is still developing or misunderstood? So, let's say we know we recently talked about matured market, but let's say if it's a sober curious market, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
does what sort of storytelling usually works? Like what consumer at that stage or what trade at that stage want to know? Like if I have to educate distributors and there are not enough distributors, how do you see a winery approaching them or educating the trade?
Even if you're talking about sober curious, meaning like they know the concept of
Mm,
sober, yes,
right.
sobriety or a dry January or not
Mm,
drinking alcohol, and
mm,
they're curious. So we already have a starting point that we're talking about no alcohol or less alcohol. So now there's awareness of that from the consumer, there's awareness of the trade about this category. So at the moment, our sales pitch or positioning or storytelling shouldn't start now with no alcohol or less alcohol, because
mm. They
that
know
is
that
already,
phase is done. Yeah,
that space is done, yeah.
correct.
Even though we are talking about an emerging market, that phase is quite done. Now within the less alcohol or no alcohol, we should start why it exists and then
Mm,
what it gives. Again, what is the engagement with the consumer on different occasion, and then what does it offer? Different flavors or inclusion, like, non-alcoholic consumers, they don't feel themselves like an outsider. They feel included in the party, in the society, and then also the balance and the connection. So these are really very important for the positioning and the storytelling. But also it's like, why this consumer wants those drinks to fit in their lifestyle, modern lifestyle. And also we can focus on the craft authenticity choice, that we can talk about also like kind of, okay, where this wine is coming from, which vineyard, or talking about winemaker or sensor journey. So I think these all are adding on into the storytelling and in the positioning, because at the moment it's not only about non-alcoholic, and there's also a huge focus on the moderation. So there's a low alcohol category is also increasing, so we can also focus on that as well. And what is also really important, getting really more important in this category, is the sustainability as well, because sustainability is very important in the traditional wine, but also in the
Right.
non-alcohol organic sustainable, it's very important. And then the transparency of the ingredients as well. So the more we can talk about it, the more we can talk about not the mimicking products, but like a real products of the organics, or
Mm.
where we the traceability. I think it makes much more difference in the within the category, in the positioning and storytelling.
Very nice. I think great examples in how we can story tell. I think this is the last question that we have, Irem. So we see where the regions are right now, but looking ahead, if you have to give a couple of tips of for 2026, which international markets do you think are going more stronger and more long-term potentials? Where we know that they are already mature and they have a know and how of low and no alcohol products, but where should wineries go more? To the matured market, to the semi-matured market, to a completely new market, because then the competition would be less. What is your tips and what is your overview for the 2026 trends?
There are different countries that we see the strongest growth. So the strongest growth at the moment is in UK, and
Mm-hmm.
also within Europe, we see a very good growth in France. We see also growth in Spain, Germany, Nordics, because there's also tenders in monopolies. And then, for example, also in Nordics like Sweden, Norway, Finland, yes, there's monopoly, but also in the retail, in, for example, in Norway, in the retail, it can be only up to 4.7% alcohol beverages can be sold. So it is an opportunity for non-alcoholic or low alcohol up to 4.7 to go into the retail in
Going
Nordics.
retail.
Or
Hmm.
yeah, in Finland now retail's changed the regulations and it's up to 8. So these are strongest growth countries, but also North America is growing, Australia is growing. So these countries are, there's already a category, it's getting established, and there's a growth. So if you want to compete in a growing market, I would recommend to go into UK, Nordics, North America, Australia, France, Germany. But also there's a new momentum coming from different types of countries, for example, Japan or
Hmm.
Brazil, South Korea, Middle East. So this is
Hmm.
also new, and India. India is a very interesting country as well because the alcohol duty is very high there.
Yeah.
So for some brands or wineries, maybe it's a difficult country to
To
compete.
end. Yes.
Enter, yeah, but with the non-alcoholic, because of the duty, that's an interesting country. But again, on those countries, there's not enough at the moment, maybe education in terms of the trade. So then you will need to have more support and you will need to invest more time in
Hmm.
those countries. But I think entering these new momentum countries in the early stages would give a strong positioning to the
Sort of a
brand.
monopoly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's that kind of a decision that obviously based on their own current distribution channels as well. It's a decision that a winery needs to take. But also what is really important as well, the regulatory normalization. So it's also important to look at those countries where they have more stricter regulations so
Hmm.
that you know what are your limits as well.
Correct.
And then in the future, what is also happening is the cross-category expansion. I really believe in that, the hybrids between different categories, like between wine, non-alcoholic wine, tea, adaptogenous or botanicals. So this is expanding. So I recommend wineries or the brand owners to look into that as well for the healthy growth or sustainable growth. But when I say sustainable growth, I don't mean only environmental sustainability. I also mean social and financial sustainability. And again, premiumization, especially in the on trade, is getting more and more important. Now, the fine dining or even Michelin level restaurants, including in their
Hmm.
menus more low
Menus.
alcohol created
Right.
pairings. So and in this category, still there's not much offerings. So then you can already, if you're a new brand or even if you're a new SKU by a winery, then you can also look into going into that segment as well. And also, as the category is increasing, as the legislations are getting more defined, clean labels are getting more and more important. I would recommend also existing products or new products, like working on their ingredients and trying to simplify it as much as possible, starting with a really high quality wine and working with a really good technology, aroma recovery, and then kind of having less ingredients possible. Yeah, I think it's a combination of all these things. It's
Everything, yeah.
only like a choice of, okay, I'll go with this country, depending on the product regulations and what you are looking for. Then I think it's a matrix of of decisions.
Basically, we have received a couple of questions as well. So one more question. So if it's a new winery which is completely into no and low, they are starting with no and low as their prime category. Do you
Mhm.
suggest them to go to more matured market, or do you suggest them to go with little momentum markets which are new, like Middle East, Brazil?
If it's a completely new brand and if it doesn't have any roots to an existing winery, I think it's better to go to a more educated, more established market, because there they don't need to, they wouldn't really invest that much to kind of explain their storytelling or the educating the consumers. So I think I
Correct.
would want to go to a more established market. But if it is already a product which is rooted to maybe existing winery or category, then it will be better maybe to go to the new momentum market, because there's going to be a less education and need support needed there in such a company.
Understood.
Mhm.
One question that we have received is on the functional beverages, and I think we at some point you said that you would like to go and talk about it later. So the question here is just a little bit brief about what functional beverages is and how close it is to the no and low alcohol category.
So the functional beverages is it's a subcategory within the no and low alcohol category. And again, it is not only about like no alcohol anymore or maybe less additives. It is also about like the functionality of that product, what that
Mm.
product gives to the consumer in terms of the physical or maybe the mindfulness level. So the consumers, especially in the more established markets, they are looking for benefits of the drinks that they are having. Yes, a good taste profile, but also, okay, what is the added value of this drink? So the functionals are the base on mostly non-alcoholic products, but with ingredients that they can offer that functionality, these benefits. So, for example, CBD is one of the examples, adaptogenous, one of the examples, botanicals is one of the examples as well. So it's kind of, there are some products that giving you mindfulness or easing your sleep or calming effects, but some products are offering more energy, like also there are beverages including electrolytes as well. So it's that kind of totally new world, and it's like an endless world. So it's also offering different taste profiles. And also this category doesn't have a benchmark. But when we talk about non-alcoholic wine or dealcoholized wine or non-alcoholic beer, we have a benchmark with the traditional product which has alcohol, so we compare it constantly. We already have some certain expectations. But with the functionals, let's say sparkling tea, there is no benchmark to compare. So that's why it is more easy, not easy, but it's more dynamic space
Right.
and more maybe judgment free. So,
Hmm.
and that's why it is growing faster and it can reach to the younger consumers faster, because there's no judgment in this category most of the time. Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting space. And again, there's a cross between dealcoholized wine or dealcoholized beer, and then combination of tea or CBD or spirits, non-alcoholic
Yeah.
spirits. Then there's nootropics. Nootropics also a different ingredient in the functional category. So maybe we should do another session just only for the functionals.
Yes. So one quick question I'll take from your observation: what product attributes matter most for UK consumers of low and no wines? Whether they are more towards taste, they look for more varietal authenticity, they go for packaging size, price. What do you see in the UK consumers?
In the UK consumers, what I see is like, first of all, again, different channels, off trade and on trade. But with the no and low alcohol at the moment, we don't have that clear split with the on and off trade, because still the category is new. So the products that we see in, let's say, in Sainsbury's or Waitrose, we can also see the product in the restaurants as well. And then also there are specialized retailers that they carry more premium products.
Right.
So because there is not that split at the moment, I think what is really important is obviously the how they stand out. Obviously, the packaging and labeling is very important because normally a consumer would have only like 20 seconds to go through across the
And
shelf and
yeah,
then decide. The consumer first decides with their eyes, so that is very important. But then also the style is very important. What type of product is this? What kind of taste profile does it offer? So it's very important to make it, I think, visible. And then also, yes, there are some consumers that are more looking for more varietals, more terroir expression. But then obviously after you pass all these filters, the taste is really important. The quality is very important because it's you can do first sales based on the packaging and then the authenticity. But then if the quality is not there, then it is impossible to get another sales. So it's a combination of that. But in this category at the moment, what is really important is to kind of transmit to the consumer what type of beverage you are offering, what type of
right. Yeah.
style. Yeah, so that we set the right expectations.
How do you position a price, a low and no alcohol wine, differently in UK compared to a standard wine?
I think again the consumer perspective is changing, and then distributors in UK also they are becoming more and more knowledgeable of this category, and they understand those products they are more
Mhm.
expensive to make than normal wine because we make the wine to be able to create a non-alcoholic wine we need to make the wine and then we dealcoholize it. So it's an added process, added cost. And then during dealcoholization, there's a yield loss. So we, depending on the technology, it can be between 15 to 30% losing the wine. And then post adjustments, there are some added ingredients, and then
Yeah.
stabilization is different. It's a product that we need to take care more as well. So it's more costly. At the moment in UK distribution, maybe 3 years ago, it wasn't like that. They wouldn't still understand why it's more expensive. But at the moment,
Mhm.
UK distribution, the buyers, they understand and they expect normally a higher price with the non-alcoholic wine versus traditional wine within the same segment, same quality level. So there's already awareness there. But again, I recommend to each winery or each producer to explain this as well, step by step, why this product is more expensive.
It's
But
expensive.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the ex-work price can be more expensive, but then obviously the duty in UK, obviously it's different. And now the duty is based on the alcohol level. And then if you go
Mhm.
below 11.5, there's a significant advantage on terms of the pricing. And obviously, if we are talking about 0.0, we are exempt duty exempt in that case. So in this case, it is obviously affects on calculating on the final price or recommended shelf price. But there also it's depending on the brand positioning, the storytelling as well. So I think what I would do is like if I have a new product and if I'm trying to enter to UK, okay, where does my product stands? What does it
Mhm.
offer? And then I would look at the benchmark and how do I position my product according to that benchmark. And then again, doing the education of the buyer, like why those products need to be more expensive in terms of X works for
Right.
the compared traditional one. Yeah.